All right, in example 4, we're going to graph cosine function. So we're going to find our period the same way. We're going to take 2 pi divided by what's being multiplied by x, or we can do 360 degrees by 3. So we get 120 degrees. So that means I normally start at 0, and I'm going to go to 120 degrees. Okay, so if I want to figure out what the intervals are, I want those to be evenly spaced, even though they don't look evenly spaced. I'm going to divide that by 4, right? So I get 30 degrees. So start at 0, and then 30, and then 60, and then 90, and then 120, right? And then my y values for cosine of an angle 0 is 1, right? So it normally goes to 1. And then cosine of 90 is normally 0. Cosine of 180 is -1. And then cosine of 270 is back to 0. And cosine of 360 is up at 1, right? So that's what we're normally at. But notice that those angles are not 90. I can't put 90, right? That's why I put 30, because that equals 90. 60 equals 180. 90 times 3 equals 270. 120 times 3 equals 360. So those are all my answers when I plug in these x's, and I get those numbers of 0, 90, 180, 270, and 360. So I know all those answers, right? 1, 0, -1, 0, back to 1. Now I'm timesing all those by 2. So this 1 gets times by 2, which is just 2. This 0 gets times by 2, which is still 0. This -1 gets times by 2, so it's now -2. This 0 gets times by 2, which is still 0, and this +1 gets times by 2, which is 2, right? So there's my graph. So it goes, and it's curved like that, up like that. So there is my 2 cosine of 3x. That's what it looks like graphed. Okay, the y values for cosine are 1, 0, -1, back to 0, back to 1, right? And all we have to do is just times them by our amplitude. Okay, so we just times each one of those by our amplitude, and that's our new y-axis labeled. X-axis, a little bit harder. You find your period, which is, that's a 3 here. You always divide 360 by whatever's times by x, and then you break them down to your intervals. So that means take your new period and you divide by 4, and that'll give you your new intervals. And you always start at 0 with cosine and sine.